So a basic thing to talk about here that I've already referenced a little bit is this idea of income versus costs. So in income, right, if you're eligible for unemployment, it's always important, I think, to go for that. I don't have particular Krishna temp agencies that I recommend besides, I think it's called Politemps, because I've been in the government space and they have political things. But I quickly was Googling last night and a bunch came up, I think, that were solid. I have worked with Randstad in the past, years ago, and I'm sure they have an office in this area. Thanks, Ron, for chiming in with Flex Professionals. That's great. So making sure you've exhausted potential unemployment if that's a possibility. And it's worth persevering. One time I got an unemployment, I think it was 9 months after I applied because they had all these problems with their system. And I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing and finally came through. We talked about part-time work. Contract work, there's a lot of contractors in DC in almost every field. And often, they're looking for people on their teams, whether it's construction or security or IT or custodial work or teaching, like we've talked about. Looking for contract specific things can be helpful and also tide you over. Sometimes contract work can pay more per hour too than a full-time job because, you have to figure out your taxes and things like that. As a self-employed person too, if anyone's thinking about, self-employment or contract work, just a reminder that about a third of the money you take in goes to taxes. You do have to pay, both what usually the employer pays and what you pay yourself. There are lots of ways to mitigate that with taxes. That's a whole nother workshop, but that's something to keep in mind. Do you have family or friend support? That's a real thing these days. I think that a lot of us have family that will be supportive to us in times of need, and also chosen family, right? People that we've connected with over the years that might not know that you're in a hard time, but can help in some ways. Can they cook some meals if you're busy, doing job searching or going to job fairs, and are there ways you can sort of help each other? Swapping, bartering. I have a cousin who does a lot of his work through bartering. He's an artist. He lives in Vermont, and he'll do a print for someone who works on his plumbing or things like that. That's not always the case. Certainly not in an expensive place like the DC area, but figuring out ways to. I've certainly coached people who then provided a massage or walked my dog or whatever else. It's a possibility too. And then public benefits are absolutely available. SNAP, WIC, some of those benefits are at a more generous level in DC than in other places, I think in Maryland as well. So absolutely no shame in, connecting to those if you need them. I see a few more things in the chat. Let me just look at that real great. Some more resources. Okay, yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yep, absolutely. There is somewhat of a safety net, but we all also, have to work often beyond that. And, but it can be complementary and give some peace of mind. I remember when my dad retired, Social Security was really a bridge for him to getting to that place. And then costs, right? I just want to acknowledge that there are a lot of costs. There's bills that come up regularly, food, you might have family obligations. I'd say entertainment because, often we can get into a scarcity mindset when we're looking for a job, and that can be really hard on the spirit. So things that you can do that are nourishing. There's certainly a lot of free museums around here, free opportunities or low cost things, but it's important, I think, to balance that. And that can be really, provide more energy to your ongoing work. And then transportation is obviously a big cost as well, whether you're taking the metro or driving. Gas, car repairs are really expensive. Yeah, and thank you, Alicia and Cleonia, about chiming in. People are living longer too. It is really hard, I think, to figure out retirement. Sometimes there are financial professionals who will work with you for either low cost or free as well to help with some of that. Asking in your network. I once, I think this is about 15 years ago, but I met with this financial manager, and I thought I was doing pretty well, and I laid everything out for her, and she was like, "I'm not going to charge you." And I'm like, "Oh, wow, that's amazing, really?" And she's like, "Yeah, the people I work with generally make a lot more money than you do, and I want to support you, and I'm not going to charge you at this time." And I was really grateful for that. It was humbling, but it was like really helpful for what I needed.